truth behind the disappearance of Jay Slater is honestly one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen.
This is the club in Las Americas where Jay Slater disappeared.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Is it me, or does it look like she's just kind of putting this on as an act?
He said, listen, I'm not going to make it.
At least if we got him back, I could have mended him.
So that body that's been buried in the ground in the UK isn't Jay Slater's.
Well, why should the family have respect of what's said in this case?
Hello, you gorgeous donuts. How does a 19-year-old go on holiday to Tenerife and vanishes without a trace, with a lot of the details surrounding the case not really adding up? Well, that's exactly what happened with British teenager Jay Slater, and recently Channel 4 have made an entire documentary documenting the case from the start all the way to present day. Now, when this occurred, it was one of the most puzzling and controversial kind of missing person cases that has ever existed. And the documentary explores all of this and even has all of Jay's family in, which just makes it so much more harder to watch. We're going to break down this entire documentary from the brand new footage they show that hasn't been shown before, the key interviews that took place during the situation occurring, how Jay's own mum was being accused of being the person that caused Jay to go missing, and she talks about it. Honestly, it's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. And at the end of this documentary, we will have a clear idea what happened in this situation and put all the conspiracies to bed. So stick with me to the end, because we're exploring every little intricate detail about this documentary. Get comfy. The doc begins all the way back to the 17th of June 2024. We see a visual of Jay partying. I believe this video was uploaded to his Snapchat, and we also get the audio, which is reenacted by a voice actor from Lucy, who was Jay's friend who called the Spanish police. And honestly, this is such a haunting way to start off the documentary. It grips you straight in.
Does he told you at all that he needs to be rescued?
Said he feels like he's going to die up there, and then the phone cut off.
Now, even though this is reenacted by a voice actor, like, it is really haunting to hear. Like, this was the actual words that were spoken at the time. After this phone call, Jay was reported missing at 9 AM in the morning. We then get a montage of the various media outlets reporting this as breaking news, and I remember this landing at the time and being so, like, overwhelmed with it. I left Tenerife 2 days before this happened. I mean, it could have been me, you know, could have been me. I hate when people say that. Yeah, I was there 10 years ago, it could have been me. No, it couldn't have, Julie. No, it couldn't have. And then we get to see our first person talking to the camera on the documentary, and this is Jay's mom, Debbie, and honestly, it is so wild that she is accepted to be a part of this. Later in the documentary, I feel like we learn why she actually is a part of it, which is really interesting. She tells us that Jay was saving up for over a year to go to this festival in Tenerife. He would be going with Lucy and Brad, who are his friends, and they would be meeting some of Lucy's friends when he got there. It's also really sad because this was Jay's first ever holiday without his family, so obviously, like, everyone can, you know, kind of relate to how you feel, like how excited you are going away. Now, obviously, there's no good time to go missing, but that just, you know, further evaluates how horrific it was that, you know, Jay actually went missing during his first ever holiday abroad, away from his parents. During this chat with Debbie, she kind of gives us a tour of the house. She gives us a tour of Jay's bedroom. One interesting thing that she says is Jay got a passport and his dog actually chewed up the passport, so they quickly had to get another one so he was able to, like, go abroad. It's almost like the dog knew. The dog was like, mate, I can tell already, you're gonna go up into the mountains, alright? I'm gonna stop you. I can smell it a mile off, right? Also, interesting that, you know, nobody has inspected the dog. I'm not accusing the dog of anything, but just saying, alright? Looks like he's got a couple of skeletons in his closet. Debbie then tells us that whilst Jay was away, she was in regular contact with him. She talked with him every single day, and the last time she spoke with him, Jay actually said, I'll ring you tomorrow, I love you. Now, this didn't obviously happen, as Jay would later go missing on this night.
Like he said, I love you, mother. I said, I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Now, I know to any normal person watching this, you can empathise with, you know, a mother that has lost their child in the most horrific way possible, especially with it being so public. Like, it's everyone's business, not just yours. But a huge thing at the time was people accusing Debbie of being, you know, kind of a part of it, or knowing more than she was letting on. And one thing a lot of people said was, oh, she's not even crying when she's doing the interviews. Later in this video, we're going to explore all of these conspiracy theories, which honestly are so horrific to look back at now, that people were actually saying these these things. But you can see here, like, our first glimpse of her on camera. She's breaking down, she's in tears. And hopefully to those people, it actually validates that this woman is going through a lot of trauma right now, and you should be, you know, kind to her because you don't know what she's going through. The doc then takes us through the exact timestamps of the night that Jay went missing, showing text messages. They also show shots of Jay in certain clubs on CCTV, such as this one in the Papayago nightclub. Is that how you pronounce it? You can see Jay clearly there, leaning against the bar, I believe, causing absolute ructions on the Veronica strip, I imagine. They then show some of the messages that he exchanged with Lucy, who was the girl that was ringing the police at the start of the documentary. Jay basically messaged her saying that he can't get back into the nightclub, like they won't let him, they've got a marker on him. Lucy's trying to get him back inside, and then Jay sends this message: "It doesn't matter, it's okay, I on a mission." Now, obviously that just seems really cryptic. Like, I don't know about you, but none of my friends say to me, "Actually, it's alright, I'm just gonna go alone in Tenerife, I'm on a mission." I'll be like, "No, you're not, you're coming back." "What do you mean you're on a mission?" What? If he's like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. "Sorry, mate, signed an NDA, can't tell you." Now, Jay's last reported sighting on CCTV was at 3:07 a.m. in the Tramps nightclub. Great name for a nightclub. And at this point, Lucy is starting to get annoyed with him because Jay won't meet up with her, I believe.
Right, what you doing and where are you? I'm coming down to get you now. If you're not there this time, I'm going to be fucking fuming.
And straight away, it's wild that they're just showing all of this. And from, like, the perspective of us who, you know, don't know these people, I am wondering why they're making everything so public. I think it's because everything was so public from the start that they're trying to just show you the unbiased, like, storyline of it to put conspiracies to bed. But honestly, like, when I was watching this the first time, I was like, oh my god, they're really just not holding anything back here. We then see Jay's Snapchat location as the night progresses. This is him at 6:22 a.m. Could you imagine if Jay had a girlfriend or something and you were like stalking him when he's away on this holiday? You'd be like, who's he going in the mountains with? Is he shacking someone? Is he? Oh, I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind, I am. They also show us a post from his actual Snapchat at 7:21 a.m. And this is from the Airbnb, which becomes a lot more prevalent in this story later on, as this was the last place that Jay was in before he unfortunately disappeared. Now, I was wondering, like, how did Debbie react when she first heard of Jay's disappearance and she actually found out through Lucy, who rang her straight away? Debbie says, like, she kind of just froze, and one of the first things she did was call our local police station just to get some more help, see if they could do anything. And honestly, it's so hard to watch because I don't know how I would react in this scenario. Like, none of us do until you're in it. It's so easy to look at these people and be like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do that? But when you're thinking from a logical standpoint, of course it makes sense, but these people are acting on pure emotion at this point. The documentary then gets even more emotional as we hear from Jay's dad for the first time.
How can you get lost in Tenerife? Boys on the beach. You don't look behind you.
I feel like that is such a cryptic statement to kick off his dad in the documentary with. Like, how do you get lost in Tenerife? I think it is pretty easy to get lost, especially if you're in the mountains. I don't think you can just get an Uber or a Bolt from there. Oh yeah, mate, can you just pick us up from the 57th ditch on the incline 2000? Is that okay? Yeah, that's, thank you very much. You know exactly where I am. I'll stay here, thank you. It had now gotten to the night since Jay had been reported missing, and they'd still not heard anything. They weren't really making any progress, so Debbie thought, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to book a flight to Tenerife. So she went that night, as she just couldn't take it anymore. And honestly, I would probably be the same if it was my child. I would get over there as soon as possible. And when Debbie actually gets to the airport in Tenerife, she receives one of the weirdest messages that occurs in the entire documentary and in this situation in general.
When it was a disappearing message, you know, the ones that only stay as soon as you read them, they go.
Already, red flag. Like, the first message you get as soon as you land is a disappearing one. Yeah. Already, I would be just stressed out. Like, that would send me a little bit west. Because clearly they don't want you to read this again. Like, I don't even need to open it. I know that it's a bad message. Just quickly, by the way, donuts, before we proceed with this documentary, do consider pressing the subscribe button. We are on the hunt for 1 million donuts on this channel. If you want to press the subscribe button now, you will be in the Before 1 Million subscriber club. Part of the donuts. Get it done, and you'll have videos like this to binge watch when you're bored.
I'll give you one warning. Your son won't be coming back. He owes us Unearthing Jay money. Kiss goodbye to him.
Sorry, is everything okay? Now, obviously, if this is the first time you're seeing this message, you're probably like, okay, that's really weird. Like, you should send this to the police. You know, we should really, you know, start here. Something has happened here. Clearly, like, possibly Jay has been taken. However, they never mention this text message in the documentary again. Like, this is the only time they talk about it. And for the rest of it, it's just like it didn't even exist. Now, later in the documentary, we do find out what actually happened to Jay. But I definitely think this should have been an avenue that should have had more exploration. Yes, it definitely could have been, you know, like a hoax or someone trolling, but the timing of it coming into your phone as soon as you land, like, that seems, you know, that seems like something you need to kind of, you know, explore. Okay, they got Jay Slater, give him back. How am I meant to kiss him goodbye if I can't have him? Right? Your logic is broken, son. I do find it interesting as well because at the time, a lot of the conspiracies that were going around was that Jay, you know, possibly was in debt to some people that, you know, you shouldn't really be in debt to. And the internet kind of ran with that and just kind of tied Jay to being this some sort of, you know, Walter White or Jesse Pinkman. But moving on from this text message, the doc then progresses to the morning of day 2 since Jay's disappearance. And at this point, many volunteers have flown to Tenerife for people that were already there, are searching for Jay. They're looking around the mountains. The information at hand at this point was that Jay went up into these mountains with 2 people called A-Up and Rocky, and they actually found out shortly after that A-Up was a convicted drug dealer. Now, hearing this as a mother, that, you know, your son could be involved with people like this, you probably are going to be a bit defensive because you're going to think the best of your son. And I definitely think Debbie is guilty of that a little bit. She says that, you know, Jay wasn't involved in any of this. And her reasoning for this is because he's really sociable and trusting. Now, a lot of mothers don't actually realise what their sons get up to. And I think, you know, definitely if you are involved in this sort of thing, you're not going to tell your mum. You're not going to be like, oh, by the way, mum, I'm just shifting some gear. You know, that's why I've got a new car outside. Just letting you know, just so we're all on the same page, okay? Nothing to worry about. If a brick does come through the window, we'll replace it. Okay. That actually happened to me as a child, side story. Like, a brick was thrown through my sitting room window. Still don't know the reasoning behind that. Gonna ask me mum when I see her next. But at this point, people still didn't really have an idea of what was actually happening, which later on all will be revealed. At this moment, Lucy decided that she was gonna set up a GoFundMe because she believed it could possibly help the search for Jay. And I remember at the time, like, people having conspiracies about this, that this entire situation, like, was pretend Jay wasn't actually missing. They were trying to, like, do this GoFundMe money so Jay could pay off a debt. Like, the amount of conspiracies that were going around about this were honestly wild. They talk a lot about this GoFundMe because it was such a huge part of the situation, and Debbie confirms that she's never had access to this money. Like, she wasn't trying to get rich off this or get a free holiday like some people were saying. Genuinely, I remember somebody on Facebook saying they're doing this so they can get a free family holiday to Tenerife. I was like, that's a little bit far, isn't it? Oh yeah, mum, I'm just going to go missing in the mountains just so you can spend, you know, 7 days in Siam Park. I don't think it's worth it, okay? Why would that ever be a thing? Come on, guys, let's keep the money in. I need the fast track tickets. One of the biggest, like, epicenters for all of these conspiracies was the Facebook group. Like, this had over 100,000 members in at one point. Just before we move on with the documentary, I need to read some of these out just so you know how ridiculous this was at the time. Some people were offering suggestions on how they could find Jay. Maybe a plane with a banner on so he could possibly see it. Hope the lad's found safe and well. I thought this too. And also megaphones. Thanks, Karen. Right. Has anyone thought of shouting with some megaphones? Might sound silly, but has anyone attempted to leave goodie bags at the side of the roads, etc., in case he goes anywhere during the night that's been searched and needs food or water? Could leave a mobile and blankets just in case. Top comment, he's not a badger. Like, what, do you think this is the Hunger Games? You know, where they, like, get the backpacks and that keeps them alive for a little bit until, you know, there's, like, some sponsors come in and they get new stuff to eat? I have a Labrador who has a very sensitive nose. Maybe he could pick up a scent if you have an item with his smell on it. Like, what a weird flex. Making this about your Labrador's nose, are you? Trying to get your Labrador a free holiday. Very sensitive nose. Fucking hell. It's a shame someone who has a lot of money like Cristiano Ronaldo can't see this and organise some mad investigating team with lots of manpower and the correct tools. Even though the police will do a good job, it's just not quick enough and not enough people in knowledge. Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, that's who we need right now. Maybe Cristiano Ronaldo could take a free kick and the ball could hit Jay. Fucking Cristiano Ronaldo. Honestly, if he turned up to search, I'd be like, alright, Cristiano, I appreciate it, but, you know, are you okay? Other people were using using this as like some sort of way to kind of joke. Like people were blaming the YouTuber Thogden. They were saying he is linked with violent drug cartel members in Tenerife, so is highly a likely suspect. People were just kind of taking the piss at this point. I mean, it would have been a little bit of a curveball if Thogden was behind it. I'm pretty sure he is in the clear though.
Lucy put a target amount, 30,000.
Debbie herself actually quizzed Lucy, the person who made the GoFundMe, saying, look, like, are you doing this because Jay needs to pay someone off? Like, you can tell me, I won't tell anyone. But again, like, this wasn't the case. Now, as the doc progresses, they keep drip feeding us more and more information, painting a better picture of what actually went down here. Now, on the morning of Jay's disappearance, apparently the owner of the Airbnb, who was also a neighbour, knocked on the door asking for Aob, the person that Jay was with, and also Rocky, to move the car that was blocking them in. And apparently this was the point where Jay decided to leave the Airbnb. Now later on in this video, we are actually going to react to an interview that Aob did, whether he confirms or denies all of this and what actually happened at that Airbnb. But an eyewitness did spot Jay leaving the Airbnb and walking down the street next to it.
I saw the boy in the morning at around 8 a.m. He asked twice what time the bus came. I told him at 10 o'clock.
Now this is a huge piece of information because she is the last person that actually saw Jay alive, and she's the last person to speak to him in person. So this entire case changes at this point that we know this information, because Jay was clearly trying to get somewhere. Like, he was asking where the bus was. Obviously we have to just take this woman's word for it. She doesn't have any, you know, physical evidence that she actually talked to Jay. Like, you know, this could be anybody, but she confirms that it is Jay. She then goes on to say 10 minutes after having this conversation with Jay, after showing him the directions to the bus stop, he was actually walking in the opposite direction, which obviously is really confusing. Like, was he lost? Was he not actually wanting to get the bus? Like, there's so many questions, and again, we have to just kind of take this woman's word for it, like, that she saw him after this. The producers ask Debbie, like, do they believe her? And they say, like, they have to believe her. Like, you know, what else can they believe? What is this woman's, like, motivation to lie about this, basically? She apparently owned a cafe that was nearby, so she's a business owner, you know, she's a reputable source, in my opinion. And it's just really sad because the various cutscenes they have in this documentary where they divert from the actual storyline of the events that took place are really sad, as we see Jay's dad and uncle visit the Airbnb that Jay was in, and they kind of, you know, are, like, taking it in, and just being there must be so emotional, realizing that, you know, your son was here before, unfortunately, he disappeared. It's also interesting to observe, like, how different people take grief. Like, Jay's dad is joking quite a bit through this. Like, I don't know if that's his coping mechanism, especially when he's at the Airbnb, he's having a bit of a laugh, whereas Debbie is, like, too stunned to speak. Like, she is clearly still, you know, just not, she can't really process what's happened here. The doc then progresses to day 3 since Jay's disappearance, and obviously as the days go on, the less likely it is that Jay is actually going to be found. At this point, Debbie is doing various interviews on national television, and I know she got criticised for this. I mentioned previously in this video, various people were saying, oh, she's not actually emotional, she doesn't actually care, she's hiding something. But I just think that's so rude and so cruel, because who are you to say, like, how somebody should deal with the grief of, you know, their son disappearing when they're abroad? Like, I can't understand how people can be so unempathetic to someone's situation. This is not fiction. These are real people. You don't know how you would actually, like, act in this situation until you're in this situation. One thing that definitely made things 10 times worse for Debbie was creators, you know, people on YouTube, TikTok, who were almost blaming her and kind of putting more pressure on Debbie than anyone else in the situation. Now, obviously, being a content creator myself, I don't want to dig out other content creators, especially ones that are in, you know, a similar space to me. But the doc shows this one guy who was consistently calling her a liar and other words, and it's just so intense to watch now.
Is it me, or does it look like she's just kind of putting this on as an act? She ain't letting the police know, she ain't letting anyone know. The family, they know.
Like, the way this guy's speaking is fact. Like, he's speaking as if he's telling the truth. This is his opinion. The way he's framing it is so unempathetic that he could possibly be wrong. This is not like a fictional TV show. These are real people in a real ongoing situation. And it is a real shame that certain content creators, when this is all going on, haven't really shown the empathy that they could possibly be wrong with their conspiracy. It's fine to have an opinion on things, but you always have to look at it from the people's that's involved point of view, especially when it's a delicate situation like this. Because could you imagine being Debbie, watching somebody say that when she's doing an interview for the first ever time on TV. Like, I know being in front of the camera for the first ever time is stressful enough. I don't even know what it must be like to talk about your son that's missing and possibly dead. Jay's uncle says in the documentary that it ran across his mind a couple of times that he was going to get revenge on certain creators that were making constant videos about the situation and calling the family out. And honestly, like, that would have been horrific if he did do anything to these people. But you can understand the anger. Like, they're already going through so much trauma right now and people are calling them liars. Like, could you imagine how frustrating that would be? You'd be like, who the fuck are you? You don't know anything about this. Now, moving on, as the documentary progresses, we get shown more footage from Jay's Snapchat. This was uploaded at 5:56 a.m. on the morning that he went missing. Just took a 12k rollie of some cunt with this Mali kid off to get 10 quid for it now, haha, off my undies. Now, if there's one Snapchat you probably could have done without going public before obviously what happened, it's this. You know, nobody wants the last Snapchat to be I'm off me undies. You know, it's not it's not a great legacy to leave behind on that app.
And then there were another screenshot that he apparently sent to somebody else.
Yes, cuz ended up getting thrown out of there. Me with 2 Marley kids just took an AP of some cunt on way to sell it for 10 quid. Now, at the time, this was a huge conspiracy as well, that Jay had stole someone's watch, and people were, at this point, kind of turning their opinion on Jay, being like, oh, like, he stole someone's watch, he was in some sort of drug debt. Was what happened to him just? Like, were people getting him back for this? All of these conspiracies were flying around at the time. Again, with little evidence to any of it, just people's kind of, hearsay. But it is a little bit weird that, he is putting these on Snapchat also. Like, why would you steal someone's watch and only sell it for a tenner? Just seems like a lot of stress to go through for, not a big outcome. Surely there's easier ways to make a tenner in Tenerife. I mean, I don't know. But like I said, this kind of changed the whole aura around Jay on the internet. Like, people started to kind of, dislike him. People actually unearthed an old article about Jay where he was involved in some sort of like machete attack. In 2021, Jay, along with 7 other youths, ambushed and chased fellow Tom Hilton in Rishton, Lancashire, attacking him with a machete, golf clubs and an axe. The gang of 8 gang members were seen laughing and joking throughout the trial at Preston Crown Court. This leads to Judge Philip Parry calling out their disrespect. Now, Jay actually got charged with this and he got community service orders. Jay's uncle confirms that Jay admitted it to the family as well. He was there when it all went down. So again, stuff like this kind of surfacing and getting made so public straight away is just creating such a media frenzy about this case. Almost every single person that knew something about this case at the time had an opinion on it. And we do see later in this documentary how the media storm actually was detrimental to the whole case, and it made finding information so much harder. We're going to get into that. But turning our attention back to the actual search for Jay, we get interviews with various volunteers who went up into the mountains to kind of, see if they could see any clues about what happened to Jay. And one volunteer says that in the terrain that Jay apparently was walking in, he couldn't believe how steep it was, how dangerous it was, and he also said that his lungs were burning up. Now, this is someone who isn't drunk. Like, Jay was obviously drunk at the time. We're going to find out what else was in his system later on. So could you imagine how he would feel, trying to get home or go to wherever he was going to in this terrain, in this weather, in this heat? People were saying they were genuinely mystified that Jay was actually making progress through this kind of area. Now, obviously, as the hours go, the police are finding out more and more information, and then they actually find a body in the area that Jay was seen in. The Spanish police requested that Debbie and the family come and have a look at the body so they can identify it and see if it possibly is Jay, and they confirm that it is Jay. Debbie describes this makeshift coffin, and honestly, this nearly made us want to cry, because the amount of shit that this woman has been through by these people online who have no empathy towards this woman's situation. And she's literally standing there in front of a makeshift coffin, looking at, resemblance of her son. Honestly, the most horrific thing that she'll probably ever go through in her entire life. I can't even begin to understand the pain of that. Now, you would think when the body has been identified by, the mother and various other family members that were there, such as the uncle and the father, that people would chill out a little bit, you know, give the family a little bit of time. However, it went the complete opposite, as the conspiracies actually ramped up online at this point. They show various videos from TikTokers, and honestly, I can't believe that people were covering this case in the manner that they were.
For those thinking that Jay Slater simply fell to his death, you need to wake up.
Just so casual, just on the sofa, just like, yeah, you've got to wake up, right? I've just finished me Rice Krispies. I've got an opinion, okay? Again, like I've said, I don't want to dig out any creators. It's fine having an opinion. Like, I make videos on so many things, put my opinions on them. That is fine. But I feel like you have a duty, especially when it's a situation like this, to handle it with a little bit more care, in my opinion. You can believe certain things, you can believe people are lying, but the way you kind of portray that information, in my opinion, has to be respectful. And I guess that is just my opinion. It's not the law, you know, it's not the way that you have to do it. It's just the way that I would like to think that people would go about it. Now, the more we get into this documentary, the more I'm starting to understand the narrative of why it was actually made and why the family are so heavily involved with it. I honestly think that they're trying to get the real story across, or at least the story from their point of view, so that people can show them a little bit more empathy and actually see that these are real people involved in this, because I feel like they're trying to put to bed some of the wild conspiracies that are flying around. Another way the doc tries to do this is by showing the my brain can't compute that word. You know what I mean? The people that kind of review the body. They too identify the body. They say it's Jay's body. They're trying to work out what actually happened to him, which we do find out later on. Trying to identify why scars are in certain places, how his cause of death could have happened. And whilst they are identifying the body, we get like certain screenshots of comments from people who still, after, you know, these people have said their piece, still don't believe them. He's still alive. That's not Jay Body. Who's Jay Body? That must be a new person in the case. Jay Body. What do they know? Has anybody considered what Jay Body's got to say? No fingerprints and family couldn't see body. All makes sense now. The family confirmed that they did see the body. Debbie described the body being in a makeshift coffin. So where are you getting your information from? It is interesting how the doc kind of props these comments up, you know, after showing all of the evidence, just to kind of show how wild some people's opinions are. A lot of people were saying that there was no fingerprints, or at least in the weather, the temperature, the terrain, that the fingerprints, you know, wouldn't be viable to review. Like, you wouldn't be able to kind of tell it was Jay from his fingerprints. However, the experts examining the body actually say that they took, you know, various tests from different parts of the fingerprints to really, you know, reaffirm that this is actually Jay's body, and they all came back positive that it was Jay's body. And I really feel like this is one of the most important parts of the doc, because we're not hearing from, you know, a source that could be seen as biased. We're not hearing from the family or other people involved. We're hearing from people who have no emotional involvement and are just doing their job. There's no reason for these people to lie. Now, at this point in the documentary, we get introduced to Brandon for the first time, which is kind of wild, because I feel like he is an integral part into the whole situation and Jay's disappearance. Brandon actually knew the two people that Jay went up into the mountains with, Rocky and Ayob. Now, Brandon didn't raise any concerns when Jay went missing. He actually suggested to Lucy that Lucy should ring Jay and not him, which obviously seems a bit weird, because like, now we know the information of Jay going, you know, missing. Why did he not want to ring? This obviously had people's conspiracies going like left, right and centre. Some people said that Brandon didn't want to be the last person that spoke to Jay. Again, just a conspiracy. The last person that actually spoke to Jay on the phone was Lucy. Lucy was trying to make arrangements to pick Jay up, but obviously that never happened. Lucy actually had loads of phone calls with Jay, and the last phone call was actually reportedly at 8:50 in the morning, which is very close to where Jay obviously disappeared. We actually get to see Debbie going through Jay's phone and looking at the last text messages between him and Lucy, and obviously you can see like she's like texting him a lot. Clearly, you know, she's worried about him. She basically just wants to make sure he's okay. But then the last two messages, obviously when he hasn't replied, there's like a timestamp. So I don't know if there's like a couple hours between these. She says, before it gets boiling, go back to wherever the fuck you've just come from. So clearly, like, the messages before haven't worked, and now she's starting to get like annoyed that he's not replying. And honestly, like, Lucy was getting such a hard time during all of this, but from this documentary, I actually feel like, you know, she was one of the people that was actually trying to make sure he's okay. But there is a lot of things that need to be explained more anymore, such as Jay says to Lucy, like, under no circumstances can I go back to where I've just been. So it's like, why can't you? Like, for what reason? Why can't you go back to Ayub and Rocky? What is the reason? Like, is he scared? Like, there's a reason why he won't go back, but he's not telling Lucy. Now, at this point, you really kind of want to hear more from Rocky and Ayub, especially because they're so integral to, you know, the moments before, obviously, Jay was reported missing. Now, they haven't had any airtime in the doc whatsoever, so I was thinking they've probably declined to comment. I didn't know that they were actually live streaming on TikTok, like, around the time afterwards, like, talking about the situation, doing live Q&As to, like, thousands of people on TikTok. Like, what is going on? Do you not know that people think that you could have had a hand in this person's disappearance? That's serious.
How am I feeling after this? Joe is mental, mate. It's actually mad.
This generation is actually kook. Like, this is what we do when we're involved or possibly involved in something like this. We just go straight to TikTok live to sort it out. Yeah, that's the way to do it, fella. Yeah, good play there. Like,
what are you talking about? Who plugged Jay? What are you on about, bro?
What did you say?
Who plugged Jay? Bro, what am I?
Nah, chill out, bro. We not do them things, dog.
Like, I don't think this is a laughing matter, especially when one of them's, like, you know, wearing sunglasses, obviously, because they don't want people to review their eyes, because you can see a lot of emotion from people's eyes. Clearly, he kind of wants to, you know, I'm not trying to say he's hiding anything, but why are you wearing sunglasses? To me, just wearing sunglasses is you don't want people to actually see, you know, how you're kind of feeling. There's no need to wear sunglasses when you've got the big light on. That's all I'm saying. It just seems counterproductive, you know? But obviously they're just light-hearted joking here. Now, can you imagine being, you know, Jay's family, especially Jay's mom? They don't have any information from these people. They're working with scraps at this point. They would have been watching this live hoping that they, you know, find out more information. And the way that they're laughing and joking about it obviously shows that they don't feel any empathy towards Jay's mom or Jay's family or, you know, to the people that cared about this person. I know everyone handles grief differently, but if I was like one of the last people to see someone who was alive, I don't know how I would go on TikTok live and just joke about like loads of stuff and just kind of, you know, be so lighthearted with it. I don't really understand it. But again, everyone handles situations differently and everyone deals with nerves differently, so I'm not going to use that against them. I just find it wild though. Ayub himself has said that multiple people were talking on this situation, so he wanted to, you know, speak himself. He didn't want other people talking on his name when he can talk, which I do understand from his point of view. Like, if loads of people are, you know, flying loads of allegations your way, you want to clear them up. Like, I understand that. And he did go on long length podcasts to talk about the entire situation. Also, if you haven't already, please do drop a like on this video, because apparently it helps us out. I've got no idea how it does, but if you wouldn't mind doing it, I'd very much appreciate it.
Said, look, your mate's sweet. Like, it's all good. Like, you come here in one piece, you left in one piece. I've done my part. You know what I'm saying?
So, you know, make of that clip what you will. I know nothing about this bloke, you know, I'm not accusing this bloke of anything at all. But one thing I will say, and not just with this bloke, I think it's a very complex situation, and it's difficult to see if people are really giving all of the information that they actually have, because everyone who is involved is trying to protect themselves as well as get to the bottom of it, you know what I'm saying? Around this time in the documentary as well, we get more results from the experts that were examining Jay's body, and they've actually got a lot more findings now. I'm going to read this out so I get it right. They say there's a skull fracture due to severe force, which would cause instant unconsciousness and also instant death, which obviously, you know, if the family hears this, they're going to think like, what happened here? Was it sinister? Like, there's a huge laceration on his head. You know, how did that get there? Was it due just to falling, or was it something a lot more sinister? After this, the doc takes an even deeper turn as Debbie actually reveals information we've never seen before. She describes logging into Jay's Snapchat, and there was an unsent message that was on his phone that sent once she'd logged in. I think it was because, you know, Snapchat had access to internet. Now, this message went straight to Jay's friend Brad. Now, obviously, this happened after he was reported missing, so Brad got quite a shock. Brad messaged Debbie being like, are you on Jay's phone? But the actual contents of the message is really sad.
He said, listen, I'm not going to make it. It's kind of like, well, he knew.
Now, obviously, that is like horrific, like genuinely horrific. And again, I take it back to all those Facebook memes and everything. Like, this kid was going through it, right? Whatever you think of, like, the history of this kid, this is such a horrific position for anybody to be in. And again, I just really feel for Debbie and all of Jay's family. One thing I really do think that this documentary will do is humanize these people, and, you know, people won't treat them as if they're just kind of, you know, pieces of meat to kind of, you know, make conspiracies about. Straight after this, the doc then progresses to Jay's funeral, and we get to see various shots of it. They actually have multiple cameras in the actual church, in the actual venue that the funeral is taking place in, which I found like mental. I was trying to figure out why they would let the cameras inside, but again, I think it's the whole thing of showing that, look, this is a real situation here, like, we're deeply upset by this. Can all the people online please stop being so nasty? Like, we see Debbie just crying her eyes out as, you know, the ceremony is taking place. But I do understand why certain people might question, you know, from Debbie's point of view, why she would let the cameras inside. Like, I understand, you know, people's kind of queries and quarrels with that, because personally, if it was me, again, I have no idea how I would act in this scenario, but I would be like, can you not have the cameras on the inside? Like, I wouldn't want them to see all of that. I don't think us as the audience need to see that. I think you can see, you know, the dismay and the distraughtness of Debbie and the family, besides seeing them cry inside of the actual chapel or wherever it was. And what makes this even more hard-hitting is straight after we see this footage, you see people still not believing that this is an actual, you know, that Jay is actually dead.
This casket has been closed from that day onwards, so that body that's been buried in the ground in the UK isn't Jay Slater's.
Stop! Like, you're in a car, acting as if you're like Sherlock Holmes. They're in this situation. They have more information than anybody. You're on the outside using apparentlys and, according to this and that. Like, they know. You don't. It's interesting how the documentary kind of edits it as well, because they definitely edit it in a way to show that people, you know, some people didn't care about the actual facts that were going down during this. Some people didn't actually want us to know all of the information. They kind of only listened to the information that they kind of wanted to, and that benefited their story and benefited their content. And again, I'm not saying there isn't holes in a lot of this, because, you know, there's how many times do I need to say you're allowed to have your opinion on this? But when you display your opinion as facts, that's where I always take an issue with it. Straight after this, the documentary shows Jay's dad showing Jay's trainers, the one that he had on, when unfortunately, you know, they had to, identify the body.
I did personally want for him to be buried in the outfit. Third years for the doubters, really, to prove that he did have them trainers on.
Like, a dad shouldn't have to do this, in my opinion. The fact he's had to get up the clothes that his son, you know, just to prove to people that he doesn't even know. Like, what even is this anymore? In any other case, the family wouldn't have to prove this. It's just because this was taken online so quickly. Another thing I do find well is sometimes the audacity of people. Like, some people feel like they're owed the information when, you know, it's not your family. You don't, if they decide to come forward with information for you, okay, that's their prerogative. They're allowed to do that. They're giving you a little bit more access to the situation. I find it wild when people expect to have all of the facts in front of them. Even the professional reporter who was working with the family to kind of, you know, spread the word out about this situation says that he's never had so many conspiracies about his work. People were coming up to him in the street and asking why he was being paid off by, like, certain people to navigate the story in a certain way, when in reality he was just doing his job. It's wild how far some people take this. We then get an interview with Debbie, who to this day is still, you know, dealing with the trauma of what happened, and she says that the conspiracies and the stories around the situation aren't slowing down at all. She's constantly got conspiracies about herself right on her door. She can't go anywhere without people saying things. It's all online. She's messaged a lot of the social media companies to kind of get these videos taken down because it's literally ruining her life. She just wants to move on. And honestly, like, looking at some of the clips that they show, I can see why she wants these down.
Unless we respect what the family wants, and who knows what the family wants, why should the family have 100% respect of what's said in this case?
Like, that is a grown man being annoyed that the mother and the family who have lost a loved one don't want to tell him all of the facts. Like, you don't deserve this information if they don't want to give it to you. Who are you? Like, who are you? It's the audacity to just expect the information that honestly just like baffles us. If I'd lost a child in any scenario and it was made public and there was someone making constant videos going, why aren't they telling me about it? Why aren't they? I'd be like, because I don't know you. So fuck off. Why wouldn't you give the respect to the family? You know, the people that are hurting the most here, the only people in this entire scenario that don't benefit from it. Again, you're allowed to make content around it, but you can also be a bit respectful. You don't have to be 1,000,000% respectful and say nothing, but just have an element of like nuance to your content, just something. Now, moving on, we then get even more results from the body scan of Jay, and Debbie actually gets told that Jay had a few illegal substances in his system. Obviously, he'd been to a festival. Like, you know, when people go on holiday, some people tend to do that. That's their time to kind of, you know, just let off some steam, I guess. But arguably the most disturbing thing about Debbie finding out about this is she was told that she is the only person who knows about this. Nobody else knows apart from, you know, the person telling that and this person about the findings of this. However, that information somehow was leaked out of the Spanish police and now was on the internet for everyone to see. Now, obviously, you know, if people online are getting drip-fed information, especially when it's information like this, it only kind of adds fuel to the fire.
How is it even allowed? You know, official court documents. And there's nothing we can do about it. We're just powerless.
Oh, I feel honestly so sorry for this woman. I know I've said that like 100 times. The results also showed, and I'm going to read it out so I get it right, that he'd not been stabbed or shot or strangled. The injuries are consistent with him falling down the terrain, but the examiners do say the only thing they can't rule out is if he was pushed initially. So they know that he fell, and that was the reason for his death, but they don't know how he fell. Debbie also shows us the bag that Jay had on, unfortunately, when he passed away, and there was no weapons in there. There was no watch, like, you know, he'd said on his Snapchat that they'd apparently stolen the watch. There was nothing in there. After this, the doc then progresses to the court case where we have various statements from witnesses. The three witnesses that are given statements is Lucy, Bradley, and also Ayob. And if anything, what this was going to offer to Jay's family is just a little bit more peace of mind, just more information about what actually happened, because that's all they want to know. They just want to know how it was that their beloved family member got into this position where they're no longer with us. I believe all of these statements are voiced by voice actors, not the actual people, but let's listen to some of them. The first one is Ayob.
And Jay was downstairs on the sofa.
Then after I said, chill out, G, I'll drop you off. And he said, no, I'm going to see the boys, they're waiting for me.
Now, that is consistent with some things that Ayob has said. Ayob did say in a podcast that he said he would drop him off in a couple hours. He was going to go to bed or something. So there is little bits of difference in the statements, but the overall structure of them remains this similar to what I've heard. And obviously this is in court now. This isn't on a podcast. Like, you can't bullshit right now. Now, we also hear from Bradley, who says that he got no impression that Jay was in danger. But interestingly, we don't get to hear Lucy's statement. Like, we heard her on the phone to the police at the start of the documentary, but we don't get to listen to hers. I'm unsure why. She was an integral part to this situation. The court then concludes that the way that Jay died was actually from falling, and there was no third-party involvement in Jay's death, so nobody has any charges of, manslaughter or anything like that. It says here, it concluded that the conditions Jay found himself in was the reason for his death: the use of illegal substances, dehydration, the weather, up for over 24 hours. So they're basically putting it down to everything that he did, the environmental factors, and this just being like a really unfortunate occurrence that, isn't really anybody's fault. That's what the court says. That is not my words. Before anyone starts attacking us. Debbie does say that the people that have caused the lasting trauma in this isn't anybody that was involved in the situation. It is a lot of the social media investigators that were posting videos every single day about it, creating so much stress for her. The doc then ends with an update, like a kind of short-term update on Debbie. Debbie is actually campaigning to make a change for the way that stories like this are covered. Debbie continues to campaign for legalization to prevent other families from becoming the target of online conspiracies. Now, obviously, this is something she feels really passionate about, and it is an interesting topic because I definitely feel like people should be able to cover these certain, topics and stuff. But like I've said in this video, how you go about it should definitely, you should definitely think twice about how you go about it. It's a hard thing to bring rules into because, like, where is the line where you're having conspiracy and fact? It's very difficult to kind of put rules over this. You're kind of just relying on the human nature of people, really. But overall, I feel like this doc really will help the family, just having their kind of story, their voice out there, because everyone else has had their say. It's only fair for them to kind of have their story across too. And I do feel like that was the main point of the documentary. It was to show like their POV of the whole situation. It wasn't about going through every single conspiracy and finding every single hole in it. It was just trying to show like the effect online investigators and conspiracists can have on everyday normal people going through something really traumatic. Now, I have done a little bit of research into people's opinions on this since it's dropped. It's only dropped in the last week, so there's not much out there as more and more people are kind of watching it. A lot of people have said there's a lack of clarity over some timeline details, like what route did Jay take after he left the Airbnb, like what state was he in physically and mentally. Some people have said about the missing witness participation, like obviously there wasn't like a real, like not everyone involved in the situation spoke in the documentary. Some people argued that the documentary didn't deeply examine the roles of certain people within it, like Ayoub and stuff. They should have kind of interrogated them a little bit more. Some people have brought up the point that apparently Debbie said that Jay would always be charging his phone. However, his phone wasn't charged at the Airbnb. Like, this doesn't really match up. Surely someone that always charges the phone would have a charged phone. And logically that works, but I guess sometimes you just don't charge it. I don't know with that one. A lot of people have kind of had the negative view towards the doc, saying that it's more of a memorial or grieving piece rather than deeply interrogative. And honestly, like, I prefer that. Like, I prefer to see the point of view from the family, like the emotional point of view, rather than a whole interrogating piece, because there's so many conspiracies flying around about this. It's hard to kind of answer them all. But one fair piece of criticism that I actually do agree with is I really wish that they dive deeper into why Jay actually left that Airbnb and just the short period after that. Like, why couldn't he go back? And also that text message that Debbie received, why was that never brought up? Because to me, that was one of the most shocking parts of the documentary, and they just never brought it back up. I told you at the moment they're not going to talk about this, and I just thought that was a little bit wild. They didn't even pass it off as if it was like a hoax or like prank calls. They just didn't mention it. They didn't even explore it. I wonder if they did actually explore it offline. I've got no idea. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my coverage of this documentary. I know a lot of people, probably have their own thoughts and opinions about the situation, and that's completely fine. One thing I will say is just be respectful in the comments, because I've recorded this video as if Jay's family are going to watch it. I always record my videos as if the people in them are going to watch them. So just remember that they could be reading through the comments. So just be respectful with your opinions, okay, Donuts? I know you always are. Kind of saying that just to new people. Anyway, if you do want to watch another video from me where I break down another documentary, click this video right here. Or if you want a more light-hearted watch from me, you might need that. Click this video right here. We've got loads to cover, you Donuts, okay? Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one.